Hello one and all, and welcome to another episode of From the Cinema. I am your host, Josh Rudolph, and yes, Halloween may be over. Sadly, it has come, it has gone, but I still have one last horror movie to review, probably one of the most famous horror movies of all time, The Shining. Now, why am I talking about The Shining still? Well, because the sequel to both Stanley Kubrick's The Shining as well as the novelization of The Shining, Dr. Sleep, comes out very soon. What's interesting about that film that I'm excited to see is that it's both a continuation of Stanley Kubrick's film, but also an adaptation of Stephen King's book, which is the sequel to his novel, which is, as we all know, very different from the movie. So I'm very curious to see how that goes. But I'm here to talk to you about Stanley Kubrick's version of The Shining. Now, this film came back way early in the 80s. It stars Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, and was directed by Stanley Kubrick. I'm pretty sure this is his only horror film that he ever made, which still surprises me to this day because this is a masterclass of how to build suspension and tension throughout an entire film, and it is marvelous in how terrifying that it is. Obviously, one of the first things to talk about is Stanley Kubrick's direction of this film. It is fantastic. All of his cinematography, like tricks and that he uses throughout the film, are fantastic. And some of my favorite sequences that he uses in the film are when Jack's son bikes throughout the entirety of the hotel to give us the landscape of the entire film that we'll be seeing throughout the entire thing, which I thought was a genius move and is still one of the best things in the film. What I really, really love about The Shining is the atmosphere of the film. I think it's one of the best atmospheric horror films that I've ever seen. Just from the production design to the cinematography to the lighting, every little minute detail about the Overlook Hotel is terrifying, especially when, Jack goes, crazy. It makes it all the more terrifying, and just how every slow building tension there is in this film. It is a masterclass in atmospheric horror, and very, very few horror films that I've seen have been able to get to this level of atmospheric tension, and that's honestly just to Stanley Kubrick's attention to detail and wanting to, terrify us. Cinematography and lighting, as I stated, are absolutely fantastic. If you've seen any of Stanley Kubrick's films, you know what you're going to expect, but here there's just that little bit of added tension to how he does the cinematography. Like, there could always be something that could pop out somewhere at any moment, and it just makes it all a bit more terrifying. But every single shot of this film is fantastic, and even if it's not supposed to be terrifying, it somehow still comes off across as terrifying, whether that because of Jack Nicholson's performance or just of anything else. It's a pretty scary film depending on who you are. Jack Nicholson in this film is, once again, fantastic as he is in pretty much everything. But I think if there's one thing about his performance that I would say that I personally don't care for, is that he just kind of turns insane just like that. There's really no build-up to his insanity. It's like he goes to the hotel to look after it. Then, we cut to, a few weeks later that it's like he's crazy now. It's like, feel like we're missing a couple in between steps to his crazy. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why Stephen King doesn't like this adaptation of The Shining, is because it misses what makes Jack good father, husband, human being. It just cuts right to the insanity. Now, granted, Nicholson still plays this part perfectly. Even when he's not insane in those quiet moments, it's still a great performance from him, and probably is my favorite performance of his, because he is, he is Nicholson, and he is terrifying, and I loved every second of it. Now, for Shelley Duvall as his wife, she was once again fantastic in this film. She was a great actress. I'm pretty sure this is the only film that I've seen her in, but just the range that she goes through in this film is absolutely fantastic. But that does come with the hindrance of Stanley Kubrick's let's just, for good, not really good terms, intense direction when it came to her, and getting her to those stress and anxiety levels. Let's just say that he went a bit too far with those, and it definitely shows, but was it really worth it in the end? I would say no. Now, when it comes to the scares, this is not your typical horror film. It is, as I've stated before, a very tension-building film. There's little to no jump scares in the film. Everything is built up perfectly, and the reveals of when scares happen are still really scary and are really, really effective. Production design in this film is quite amazing. The scale of this hotel is just absolutely incredible, both outside and inside. It feels like a lived-in, breathed-in place, and it is just incredible what they have accomplished. And just because of Kubrick's attention to detail and how he does the cinematography, you feel like where places are, and how this place works. You never feel like that it's too big. It feels like it could be cramped, but it still feels ginormous. Like, there's still places that we haven't seen. And that's, again, due to Kubrick's direction of the film and the production design as well. As the story goes, it's a fairly simple story of just a family going to look at over a hotel, but because of the isolation and maybe supposedly some supernatural elements going on, madness begins to set in, and begins to make the husband go let's just say a little bit crazy. It's fairly simple, but because of how slow Billy Kubrick takes it, it feels like it's a much larger story than it actually is. But overall, it's still like, a story that we could all gather. And even with the ending that still confuses people to this day, it's still a film that we're all able to watch and able to enjoy just because of the simplicity of it, which I thought was, again, a genius move on both King and Kubrick for the film. Just from the atmospheric tension building from Kubrick to Jack Nicholson's amazing performance to just every minute detail in between, it is just incredible both on a scare factor and also on a film level. If you're a film student, obviously you should check this one out. It's fantastic and amazing. If you're even a normal going audience member, I think you're going to enjoy it. But go in knowing that it's going to be much more slow build tension than most horror films are. It doesn't rely on jump scares to make you scared. And again, the one problem I have is just really with Jack's character and just the instant turn to insanity rather than the actual build up to it. I feel like that if it was a build up to it, we would be able to sympathize with him more and you would feel more with it. But as it goes, I'm like, it's good with his character, but there could be more to it. But overall, The Shining is still an incredible film, and if you haven't checked it out, please check it out before Dr. Sleep comes out very soon, because obviously it wouldn't make sense if you go to see Dr. Sleep and you haven't seen this one. That was my review of The Shining. I hope that you all enjoyed. Please make sure to subscribe to Mesa Cable Network to catch more reviews every single week. All right, I'll see you all next time.